Hello and welcome back to the Imperfectly Thriving podcast. So this week we are doing some Q&As. So we are running through some of the questions that my girls on Thrive have had. So if you do not know, and if you are not on Thrive, why not? But Thrive is my 8-week fat loss program, and we started on the 5th of January. And every single week we run through some of their popular questions. So, of course, they get their one-to-one check-in with me. We do a check-in summary every single Tuesday. But we also know that there's other questions that do pop up through the week. So I thought it would be helpful to open this up on the podcast to allow you guys to see some of the common themes, some things that we often end up struggling with in January, and of course, help to navigate you through those things. So we're going to run through some of the questions and, of course, my answers to those. And we'll talk a little bit about Thrive throughout the process. So, the first question is that my water intake is rubbish. I work with 3 to 4 and 5-year-olds all day. It's non-stop. And even though I have a water bottle in the room, I'm just not drinking. I'm always worse when it is cold. Any helpful tips to get the hydration in? So, hydration is one of those things where, it's not the be all and end all. And we're not saying, drink 3 litres every day. Make sure that you are literally bursting at the seams with water and electrolytes, because that's just not the case, okay? We actually don't need as much water as we used to think we need. But the reason why I give my girls a water intake or water habit, should I say, on Thrive is because most of us neglect water. Most of us neglect drinking, and it's not even a fact of water. So I always say that if you squash, dilute, cordial, whatever we call it. I know that we all have different names for it, depending on where you're from. But stuff like that, like I'm literally sat here right now with my giant Stanley Cup that I actually won on a TikTok giveaway, which is mad, really, isn't it? But I'm sat with that now, and I just take little sips throughout the day. And it's the fact that it's there and it's next to me that I'm more inclined to do it. So the first thing is like make it more obvious. Like you say, you have a water bottle in the room, but you're just not drinking it. So is it that it's not visible? Is it out of sight? Is it out of reach? Like try and set it up in a position where you're always kind of going to go back to. So I'm speaking from experience here, and obviously I used to work in early years in school as a teacher, and I get it. Like I get it. Your all systems go all the time, right? But you're probably going to have that place where you always kind of go back to, whether that's like your desk, a cupboard, like wherever that is. So set it there and, make it obvious. Um, I think the thing is as well, like it's not just a matter of like drinking throughout the day, but first thing on the morning, we lose a hell of a lot of water when we sleep overnight. So make sure that first thing on the morning, like down a pint of water, have half a pint of water, like start your day with hydration as well, because again, it's not a matter of you have to drink all this water at once. Another big thing why water is important is a lot of the time we think we're hungry and we're not. We're just thirsty. We just need a drink. Drinking is drinking. Drinking water is a good way to distract yourself from hunger as well. So obviously we know that when we're in a fat loss phase, we are going to experience hunger. Of course we are. And I know that a lot of people on the internet will like to tell you that you shouldn't be hungry. Like, this toxic diet culture, it's swung from one extreme to the other, hasn't it? Of the body positivity police saying, oh, you shouldn't be hungry. Da, da, da. No, like if we're wanting to burn body fat, then of course we are, because there's not as much available energy as there has been before, right? And we're going to get those the hunger cues. Now, a way that we can distract ourselves is have a drink, have a peppermint tea, have whatever, chamomile, whatever you like to drink, a green tea, whatever. I drink peppermint tea a lot, especially in winter. I would probably drink a lot more of like my juices and, water, especially in summer, because it's cold, it cools you down, but I know that it can be harder in winter. But things like we say, peppermint tea, those kind of like flavored teas that are 0 calorie essentially, they can all count as part of your water intake as well. And that's a really good way, like especially if you can at lunchtime and things like that, just to make sure that you're getting that intake up. But I think the big thing is like start your day with some hydration, make it more obvious in terms of like having your water bottle there, right on the palm of your hand, drink some water. Like let's let's just make it obvious. And I know that it's that annoying question of like, how do you drink more water? Well, you drink more water It's that thing. And I know that it's not the answer that we all want to hear sometimes, but just drink more. Make it more obvious to yourself. It's a habit more than anything. And the more you drink, the more you get used to drinking. And of course, the more then you'll get used to like going to the toilet at regular intervals rather than feel like you need a wee all the time as well. So drink more, make it obvious, and like we say in winter, try and drink some like of the flavoured hot teas and stuff like that, which will help as well. So the next question is, any suggestions to help keep the motivation during your period? I'm struggling a bit this week, feeling bloated, tired, and just want to munch on things all the time. So the first thing is recognizing this is normal. Like motivation around that time of the month can be low because of our hormone changes, because we tend to, and I'm not saying this is across the board, because I, for one, am very different to what like the internet would say you should be feeling on your period. When my period comes, I am like after day one, probably the first day, I am a breath of fresh air. I am up and at 'em. I am motivated. I am buzzing. I'm the worst in the run up to my period. So the week before is the worst for motivation. I'll low around that time. You know, that's when I really tend to struggle. So I think the big thing is understanding why the motivation is low, and like you say, if you know that it's your period, then it's reminding yourself it's going to pass. Like anything, like hard times, like stressful periods, it's going to pass. And this is why we don't go with the mood. We don't follow the mood. We stick to the program because you know that action is always going to make you feel better. If you succumb to the thing of, oh, I'm on my period, I'm just going to eat, I'm just going to munch on things all the time, and I'm just going to stay in bed, and I'm just going to, not go to the gym because I'm bloated, I'm tired. If you do that, that's not only going to then make you feel rubbish about still being on your period and still having all those feelings, but it's then also going to make you feel rubbish about the fact that you've not stuck to the program, you've not gone your workouts, you've not, adhered to your targets in terms of nutrition, and, it's setting you further away from your goals. So I think that's the big thing. It's like, just take action anyway. And I know it's hard. Like, I know it's difficult. I know it's hard to get yourself motivated when you don't want to, when you'd rather stay in bed, but you will always feel better for doing something. Now, in terms of like, should I change up exercise and stuff like that during your period? It depends. This is why we don't follow the thing of, okay, yeah, this during your luteal phase, you're going to do this stretching exercise, or, during your period, you're only going to do light walking, and during ovulation, that's the only time you can do heavy lifting. Like, the reason that we don't follow that is because every woman's body is different. Everybody's going to experience things differently, okay? Now, for me, again, like I say, it's always in the week during the lead up to my period that I do generally feel a bit weaker. But I don't all of a sudden stop doing weightlifting. I don't just start doing yoga just for the sake of it, because that is the way that slows down our results, right? It stops us from moving forward, and it gets us feeling hella frustrated in ourselves. So the thing is, we can't rely on motivation, because if you just rely on motivation, you don't get results, because you don't stick to something for long enough, because motivation doesn't stick around for long enough. But you have to remind yourself how proud you will feel when you've done something, even though you didn't feel like you wanted to do it. You got up and you went to the gym even though you didn't want to, even though it was the last thing on your mind. You ate well and you tried to fill up on lots of protein and fiber, even though you actually just wanted to eat a full bar of chocolate. But you did that because you knew that that's what aligns with your goals, and that is what's going to make you feel better. And you have to trust in that feeling, and that you can be that person who sticks to things. And yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, we're trying to rewrite those habits and that story for yourself, but you can do it, and you've just got to prove yourself you can do it. Now, in relation to like height and hunger, again, it's normal. During our period, our body needs more energy, in a sense of not massively more, and this is again why I don't give my girls more calories during, that time of the month or in the luteal phase, because okay, naturally, if you feel like you need to eat a little bit more chocolate, then you'll find you can eat a little bit more chocolate and you can fit it into your calories, right? But just saying that across the board, right, you will be hungry, here's more calories. What that does is it sets up that expectation in your brain of like, right, sorry, the dog is barking. There is somebody hoovering the gutters outside, and I'm really trying to stop him. But it sets up that thing in our brain of like, right, I'm gonna be hungry. Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell yourself you're gonna be hungry, then you are gonna eat more, and you're then not gonna see the results that you want to see. All right, so we can actually monopolize on the fact that our body is using more energy. Now, the thing I would always advise to do is, like I said, to fill up on loads of protein and loads of vegetables, right? Yes, you're going to feel hungrier, but also there's going to be some cravings. The cravings of, okay, I fancy a little bit of chocolate and, a little bit of crisps or salt or whatever you may crave around your period. Have a little bit of what you fancy, right? But also, it's about knowing. Sorry, I had to pause like that because the dog was barking. You don't want to hear that. He's very loud when he barks. But have a little bit of what you want. Like, if you fancy some chocolate, have a Freddo. But you also know that you have fat loss goals, you have goals that are important to you, and this is important to you in your life right now. You're valuing that. So you have to show up for those values and you have to ask yourself, are my actions aligned with that? But it will pass. And that's just what you have to remind yourself is, okay, this might be a feeling now, but I know that it will pass. So on to the next question. I'm off to a pub with my dad at the weekend, Manchester Derby. I know that. Definitely not my brother. My boyfriend is at the Manchester Derby as well. He makes a full weekend of it, and yeah, he goes and drinks pints. And I deal with the aftermath. But I know my day will end up with a few pints, but I'm going to accommodate for them and make the best choices I can around them. I know I could make better choices in drinks, but pub time with my dad is one of my non-negotiables, and that's life. So making a good choice around, I'm hoping won't tip me over the edge. So I think the thing to remember, and it always comes back to, right, what are our values? And like you say, you value quality time with your dad, and you want to have that and making memories and all that, and that's what's important, right? But I think also at the same time, whilst you're doing Thrive, you know that this is important to you, and you know that this is something you really want to work on too. So it's finding the balance between the two, and that's what the important bit is. And it doesn't have to be tricky, but you just have to rewrite this story, right? And you have to go in there with the expectations. And I always say, like, envision yourself in the position where you want to be, you want to see yourself, right? And then show up and act like that. So it comes down to, like, what would the pub and going there and going to the derby and whatnot, what would that look like ideally for you, right? And that might be, okay, I'm going to see myself and I know that I've put in 2 pints into my fitness pal and I've accounted for them because, like I say, I want to have, a pint or two with my dad, but I also know that there has to be some element of compromise because I can't go and drink 10 pints because that's going to make me then feel a bit rubbish about myself, and I'm then gonna see a rise on the scales, and I know that that's gonna then push me away from my weight loss goals, and I really 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 want to make the most of this 8 weeks and I want to get there as quick as I can. So it's about aligning, like we say, those values and asking ourselves if our actions are going to align with that. Okay. And I always say, like, we always have choices every single time. Every single day we have choices. And if we tell ourselves, I don't have choice, I have to do this, da 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 da. It is that self-fulfilling prophecy, but we are grown-ups, we are adults, and we always have a choice on what we do in a situation. So I would say, like you say, like you said yourself, you are going to accommodate for them. Now, ideally, I would try to eat before you went out so that you're then not having to accommodate for pints and also not having to accommodate for food. I can't comment on what food is like a football match or anything like that, because I have never been to a football match in my life, I'm not gonna lie. However, um, it's about, okay, if I know that I'm going to this food place, then have a look at the menu beforehand. Of course, something that we can do in Thrive is we can share menus, and I know that a couple of girls have shared them recently. Be like, right, okay, what is a good choice to have? Something that's full of protein, but also something that you enjoy. And I always stress that, like, the important thing is, if you are going out and you're going somewhere, you don't just want to choose like the lowest thing on the menu or the salad, because that may not necessarily always be the best choice, and you want to enjoy it and you don't want to resent the process, right? But the big thing is, for like events and things like this, it's we always need to plan ahead. We always need to go into it saving some calories. So when we talk about saving calories, it's like your bank balance. So, you're going to the Manchester Derby, you want to make sure that you've got some money banked, because you don't then want to go there and end up being like, oh, okay, I've got no money left, and then I'm going to feel miserable about it and, going to be beating yourself up, right? So the exact same thing happens with calories. So in the lead up to any events, any meals out and things like that, you want to be banking your calories. So that may look like, for instance, just for argument's sake, if you have 600 calories and you are going out on Saturday, then if you can save, between 100 to 200 calories from Monday to Friday, you've got like an extra 500, 1,000 calories there that you can then spend on Saturday. So it's the same thing. It's like, when we talk about banking, it's like you'd save your money up to go somewhere. It's the same thing. You'd save your calories up to go there. And we can do that. And then on Saturday, you would have like, 2,600 calories to be able to spend and have something that's a bit more calorific. But throughout the week, your average calories would still be the same. They'd still come in where we want them to. And that's a really important thing that we can do for the future, right? When we do have plans and we know that, okay, yeah, this is what's coming up, so I'm gonna bank and make sure that I can, save for it. But I think the thing is like being clear about what it's going to be like. I'm going to go and I'm just going to have 2 pints and I'm going to go on to soft drinks because I know that. And what will happen as well, if you say that to yourself, you will really savor those 2 pints. You will really enjoy them. And you will really, instead of just doing the thing of like binge drinking and then feeling miserable about it and feeling miserable about yourself, you'll start to recognize that the joy in the situation doesn't come from the fact that you're drinking loads and you're eating loads and, disrespecting your body. But the joy comes from the fact that you're with your dad and you've, enjoyed the atmosphere at the Manchester Derby and you've watched football and you've enjoyed that. Like, that is where the joy comes from. And sometimes we just have to rewrite that narrative, and it does take a while and it does take a bit of practice in terms of social events to get to grips with that. But you can look at every experience and every like meal out or social event and etc. on Thrive as being like a learning curve and a learning experience where you know that you will get better at managing things the more you do it. Like, I don't fret about things anymore. I don't worry about meals out and things like that because I know that, of course, I can always manage to fit things in and I can always manage to make some compromise somewhere so that I can still enjoy things. And that's what it's about. So do your best to bank calories, like we say. Try to get some protein in before you go. Make sure that you're actually like not going out starving, because again, that's a really big important thing. And think about the choices you're making when you are out. Like, if you press that effort button, you've got to ask yourself, would future me be thankful for this choice? Is future me going to feel good for that? And that's a really, really powerful question that you can always ask yourself. Does this align with my goal? Is future me going to be happy for this, right? Because we're always going to have to deal with our actions and consequences from our actions. So if you know that if you drink 10 pints and you're going to guilt trip yourself for the rest of the week and it's going to make you feel rubbish, then that will help you to make that decision, won't it? So the last question is scale fluctuations. How not to be demotivated by the scale going up and down every day. I know that's why we weigh ourselves every day, but when you feel like you've had a good day, then the next morning the scales go up. It's hard. Yeah, of course. And again, this is like one of those things where it's about learning, and the more we do it, the more we learn to understand the patterns and what happens when we do weigh ourselves. So I will use me as an example, right? So my weight has been, I'm obviously doing Thrive alongside you guys. My weight has pretty much gone down all week. So um yesterday I went to the gym and I did some real big PBs. I did a PB back squat. I went for a run. I ate pretty good, stuck to my calories, hit my protein, drank my water, all the things we need to do. But I have woken up today feeling like I've been hit by a truck, right? I had to bum shuffle down the stairs this morning. I can't straighten my arms out properly. It hurts to open the fridge, which may be a good thing. But the pain is definitely there. All right. And that's what we call DOMS, delayed onset of muscle soreness. And it's because I'm not back squatted for like 3 weeks, because obviously I had time off over Christmas being poorly. It's because I then also went for a run, which was a great idea by me actually, because the run was actually programmed for today and I would have not been able to do that today. All right. But just because I, stuck to my numbers, I stuck to my goals, my habits and everything, and the scales went up, doesn't mean that I've done anything wrong, okay? I look at that number on the scale and I'm like, okay, what possible reasons could that scale have gone up? What, why essentially? Now, I'm sore. When you're sore, there's a lot of inflammation in your body, okay? My muscles are inflamed right now, and my glutes feel great, to be fair. I would quite like it to stick around because my bum feels massive. But there's definitely a lot of inflammation going on. There's a lot more water retained in my body, which happens when we have DOMS. So I know that the reason those scales have gone up is not fat related. It is everything to do with water retention. Okay. Now, the same would happen if you've had a lot of salt in your food, if you've eaten late, if you've not gone to the toilet. Like, there's so many things that can affect the scales on the day to day. And that is why we don't focus on how have the scales moved from one day to the next day. We zoom out and we look at the bigger picture and we look at the trends. Now, this early on in Thrive, it's really difficult to do that because you've only got like not even 2 weeks worth of data yet to look at. And this is it. We call it data at the end of the day. It's just data. It's just your relationships with gravity at the end of the day, isn't it? The biggest thing is asking yourself, how am I feeling myself, right? Now, if you step on the scale and you see that it goes up, right? Do you then allow that to dictate how you feel the rest of the day? So does that then inform your decisions of, well, sod it, because the scales has risen, so I'm not going to bother tracking. I'm not even going to bother weighing this out. I'm not going to go to the gym because why bother? Because it's not working, and I'm definitely not doing my steps. If that is your attitude, right, then of course things aren't going to move. Of course things are not going to move forward because we're reacting, and we're not reacting in a positive way, are we? We're reacting in a negative way that's going to have us feeling like we're a failure and feeling like we can't stick to anything, isn't it? So it's about asking ourselves, okay, I know that that number is going to rise and it's going to drop on days, but I can't allow that to dictate my day. I have to stick to the process anyway, because you're not going to defy science at the end of the day. You're not going to defy thermodynamics. The rise on the scales does not mean you've gained body fat. Okay, so weight will move in a straight line. Body fat will move like in a straight line in a pretty straightforward trajectory. If we're in a deficit, fat loss will be happening every single day. But that will not be shown in the scales because there's so many other factors that can influence it. Like we say, if you're feeling sore, if you've not been as regular on the loo, if you had some more salt in your meals yesterday, if you didn't drink enough water yesterday, if you drank a lot of water yesterday, if you're on your periods, where you're at in your cycle, there's so many different things that can affect it. That is why we can't just look at and allow the day-to-days to impact us, right? And that's the thing to remind ourselves. So step off the scales and ask yourself, okay, have I stuck to the process? And if you know, actually, I've been a bit relaxed with my weigh-in. I've just been, throwing sugar in tea like no tomorrow. I've been piling on that Nutella and saying it's 5 grams, and it's probably not because I'm not weighing it. I've been saying, oh, that's a teaspoon of peanut butter when actually it's heaped up to my eyeball. So yeah, I'm not tracking accurately. I'm missing. Oh yeah, I missed that Freddo that I had last night, and I put that share size bag of whatever in as a singular bag. If it's things like that you're like, actually, yeah, I do need to tighten up on those things. I've not tracked my oils, I've not tracked milking cup of teas and things like that. Then there's things there that we can tighten up on. And that you can use that rise on the scales as like, right, that is more motivation to get shit done, isn't it? It's a rocket up your backside to be like, come on, if we want to see things moving, then we can't be fibbing to my fitness pal. But if you know that you've done everything you need to be doing, you're doing your steps, you're doing your workouts, I'm sticking to nutrition, I'm getting my protein and I'm getting my fibre and I'm staying hydrated, I'm sleeping well, then you've just got to trust that process. And I know that it can be difficult, but trust that I am with you on this process. I'm not going to give you goals that are going to see you gaining body fat, am I? Because that's not good for either of us. So trust the process, right? Stop acting like a scale rise is the worst thing in the world because it isn't. Behind the scenes, fat loss will be happening. And what will happen is you'll have a massive drop. Like for me, in the lead up to my period, I really, really don't have a drop on the scales, even if I am low on my calories, right? Then my period comes, day two, massive drop, like, a kilogram plus overnight, which I never get. but I know that it's my period. I've not magically just dropped a kilogram of fat overnight, just like we don't put a kilogram of fat on overnight. So that's what you have to remind yourself. It's like, don't allow it to demotivate you. Allow yourself to ask, to reflect and be like, okay, have I done anything that needs tightening up on? If you know that you can answer that, and honestly be like, no, I'm doing everything I need to do, then just trust in the process. And if we need to change your targets, we will do, and we can adjust that and talk about these things in check-ins. But don't allow the scales to get you down. Focus on the other things. How am I feeling in myself? How am I feeling in my clothes? How am I feeling in the gym? Have I done some PBs? Oh, I've just done a 5K PB. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. Focus on those things and ask yourself, right, what's more important? That number on the scales that we don't walk around with it written on our heads, or how you're feeling in yourself. And I know that it'll always be the latter. Of course it will. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that it covered. It's quite like a bit of a variety of things actually for the first Q&A, which is quite nice. But if you are listening and you are a Thrive girl, do let me know for next week anything that we can go through. Of course, we'll do our check-ins, the check-in roundups as usual, and we are going to keep on smashing it. If you are listening to this and you are not on Thrive, unfortunately, Thrive is closed. We do have set points throughout the year. Last year I did 2. I think this year we may do an Easter one. We'll see. We don't know yet. But my one-to-one coaching spaces are open. So if you are interested, come and find me on Instagram at thriving.withlaura and just send me a little hello. I know that sometimes it can be scary. You might not know what to say. Send me a hello and I'll take it from there. And I hope that we all have a lovely, lovely week.